Hello and welcome to the i3 lecture series hosted by the Masters in Digital Photography here at the School of Visual Arts. I am Julie Graham. For those of you who are not already familiar with tonight's guest, you really need to get out more. Bill is often seen out and about on the photo scene, and he can be found here in his own seat in the front row at virtually all i3 lectures. Please follow him on Instagram to see his unique perspective. We are especially pleased to have him up here at the lectern tonight instead. Bill has worked on national ad campaigns, book jackets, album covers, and as a still photographer in TV and film production for clients such as Irish Spring Soap, Movado Watches, Coke, Diet Pepsi, and American Express. Bill's work has been exhibited here in the city, all across Brooklyn, and in group shows around the country. I have personally known Bill since 2014 when he took this very master's program, and he stood out then and has continued to do so. And I'm so happy that he's here tonight to share the breadth of his photography, talents, and his conceptual skills with us. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for coming out this evening. First of all, I want to thank you, Julie, and Tom, wherever you are, there you are, and Marco for helping me put this together and for inviting me to present. I'm going to be presenting 5 long-term bodies of work. They are A Man in His Barge, Illustrative Portraits, Holiday Windows, Channeling Magritte, and The Living Marsh. Captain Sharp's taking a quiet moment, pondering his next project. In 2015, this image was a finalist in the Digital Pro Photos The Face photo contest. On September 2014, I photographed Captain Sharp's for a day in the life assignment for photojournalism assignment for James Estrin's editorial class here at the School of Visual Arts. I realized that I had identified my thesis titled A Man in His Barge. This photojournalistic essay focused on documented maritime activities, maintenance that included float repair, spinning the barge, and barge assessment as mandated by the U.S. Coast Guard. Captain Sharps steps out into the pouring rain to inspect the progress on the float repair. Doug Pearson repairing a float below the barge gangway in the pouring rain, I might add. David Sharps checking his email on his antique ironing board. Doug Pearson, museum volunteer and musician, discusses the complexities of the float repair. Deterioration from sun, rain, ice flows from Flosum, and changing tides greatly accelerated during the storms such as Hurricane Sandy and Superstorm Irene. David Sharps and Doug Pearson discuss the complicated preparation of spinning the barge. David Sharps preparing the deck to spin the barge. Captain Sharps directs a crew of volunteers through the important task of spinning the barge. So these were made up of lawyers, accountants, artists, painters, people from the community, and one fellow from Ohio. Captain Sharps demonstrates spinning the barge to volunteers. And these guys are going to be working on the deck, running around the barge. That little slab of wood, the 2x4 on the table, represents the barge. Captain Sharps and crew work in tandem to spin the barge. So it took 3/4 of a day to rotate. Spinning the barge is rotating the barge 180 degrees. There's no motor on the barge. It's all done by hand and by pulling ropes. Woodblock pulleys are but a small, or one of the maritime artifacts on display aboard the Waterfront Museum. Sarah Bird Sharp's handling the deck line. She was anxious to get her home back and her office. Perry Martin, he came in from Ohio, handling the deck line, mooring the barge. Now, Perry was walking out on that lower rope and jumping up and down with his body weight and then pulling up the slack on the upper rope, inching the barge closer to being moored. It took hours. Layers of past and the present come together in Brooklyn Harbor. Now, Master Shipwright David Short came in and he's assessing the knee beam damage that was below decks with Captain Sharp. So we went around the entire lower deck examining wood that was oversaturated because the water was so clean, the worms started to eat the hulls out of the wooden barge. So he had leaks. And half of this knee beam's missing. Captain Sharp's and Sarah Sharp's discuss how to, oh boy, that's wrong. They're Skyping their daughter who's in school in London. David Short and Captain Sharp's discuss how the deck house and the hull were connected in 1914. Captain Sharp's teaching middle school students maritime history. This is a girls' school in the middle of the winter time, so the barge is heavily insulated. Of course, they get glassy-eyed after a little while because trying to hold like a class this size, their attention. David started addressing Circus Sundays. He's a circus performer for many years, and he has circuses aboard the barge, and he's an expert juggler, so he refocused them in a matter of seconds. All right. Captain Sharp's having lunch with his daughter, Dahlia. The 101 Lehigh Valley barge surrounded by ice in New York Harbor. Maybe it looked like that this week, right? It's been cold enough. The Lehigh Valley barge on ice. This made a beautiful print, by the way, large print. The Lehigh Valley barge in tow to dry dock by the Freddie K. Miller tug. Now they had to take this barge all the way up past Albany to go to dry dock. And that's where they literally took the barge out of the water and they had to replace the hull, very huge pieces of wood that make up this barge. Captain Sharp's with his first mate, Doug Pearson, in the pouring rain. And the following are the credits from my exhibit that I had on the barge from May through July this past spring and summer. That's the QR code for the barge. The Mocano organization, which is the company that owns all the property around that part of Red Hook, and my contact information. These guys love standing out in the rain. Unbelievable. Now, illustrative portraiture. This is titled Vogue. This is my daughter, Caitlin. I began to formulate and digitally capture profile, three-quarter, and frontal portraits in January of 2016. Digital captures were made in the studio. My lighting approach was to simply simplify the use of studio lighting. Vogue was exhibited in the Photo Place Gallery. The title of the exhibit was Celebrating Women. It was jurred by Joyce Tennyson. Illustrative portraiture. My use of the profile was directly influenced by Pietro della Francesca circa 1474. I mean, I've studied a lot of art history in my life, and this one totally got me. Captain Sharps. Really simple lighting. It's one ProPhoto B2 with a 1x3 OCF light modifier and 2 silver reflectors with a white background. This was photographed on the bar. It's a white background was allowed to fall into a medium gray, and then the rest is my editing in Lightroom Photoshop. This is titled The Traveler. This is an international model by the name of Chin Chong. Same lighting technique, but in the studio. This is titled The Keeper. This is Chris Lavish. The same exact lighting approach, except I didn't use the textured background. This is Grace, the doors at Grace Church on Broadway. This is the profile. Chris Lavish. Same lighting approach, a little different placement of the lights. It's a little more fuller. The background, I selected various flypaper photographic textures, okay, which I duplicated, then manipulated, changing their color, hue, saturation, texture, and resized to use as a photographic background. All this was done in Photoshop. The profile of Chris Lavish received a third place award from Digital Photo Pro in the FACE contest in 2016. Avant-Garde. I went to a larger strobe system, went to a 600 TTL unit with a Photex Beauty Dish and one Westcott eyeliner reflector. Avant-Garde received a 2016 honorable mention in the Fine Arts Portraits in the International Color Show. I try to enter the black and white color shows and the color shows just to get the work out here, to get feedback from people internationally. I think it's really important for you as a photographer to do that for yourself. Okay, Tattooed. Chris Lavish. 600 TTL, same basic lighting setup. It's really simple, except the background. Again, I ended up selecting a textured background, and I may have combined a couple. I have a tendency to combine backgrounds in order to draw more of a feeling to complement the subject matter, such as this one, which is my sister's keeper, in which I used 2 Calumet 750s, one large Lastro light 6 by 7 foot light modifier, and 2 manipulated flypaper textures with a drop shadow that was employed. Now, I've left something out. Note, in order to add a new background to a shot on gray image, if you try this, in Photoshop, you want to use overlay or hard light blending modes to replace the gray background. This information comes from a book I dog-eared, which was the book I used in school here for Katrine Eisman's Photoshop class. The book was written by Katrine Eisman, Sean Dugan, and James Porto. I also use a Wacom tablet and a pen tool a lot when I do this type of work. This is me. I grew up during the space race. I still like that stuff. This was at Sony, and they had a spacesuit on display. So I asked them, could I photograph the spacesuits? They said, sure. I ended up doing my self-portrait in the studio and then adding textured backgrounds to finish that. Okay, now we're up to holiday windows. This is Saks Fifth Avenue during the Christmas holidays. I'm standing on the curb, holding onto a planter so I wouldn't get run over by the people. If you notice, all the windows are rectangular. If you haven't seen Saks, I'm sure everybody here has. Holiday windows make great holiday ornaments. Every Christmas since 2019, I've photographed holiday window displays of Macy's, Bloomingdale's, Bergdorf Goodman, and Saks Fifth Avenue. I photographed with a Sony full-frame camera with an 8mm Mikey fisheye lens that's manual, so nothing's automatic. This is Anna from Disney's Frozen. Now, I've only picked 3 from each one of those because I have a lot of these, so I've been doing it for a while. This is Elsa from Disney's Frozen. No, Elsa? Yeah, Elsa. And this is also Elsa from Disney's Frozen. I love the fact, and I still wonder how this happened, that I was able to get the tower in Rockefeller Center behind her. When I'm shooting with a fisheye, I'm literally 1.5 inches from the glass, and I wear black. So I have a tendency not to have any reflection show up. This is Poker from Bergdorf Goodman. Bergdorf windows are, I think, the best in town. They're very high vertical windows, very deep. They take a year to plan ahead of time, and they are really beautiful. Every year they seem to be right on target, for the most part, every season. This is 2 ladies playing chess on a giant chessboard. This I titled The Sleepover, where the 3 ladies playing music, I think were the theme. Now there's a whole series of these that I have. You'll see a little bit more in the last shot. Merry Christmas, New York from Macy's. I couldn't believe I got this shot at Macy's. It really knocked my socks off the day that I shot this. Another window from Macy's. This was a rotating abstract Christmas tree. It was so cool. It was different colors, and it was changing colors, and there were 8 Santa Clauses on it as it was rotating. You can also see the Empire State Building. This is Kaleidoscope. This was so unusual. They had a cylinder coming out of the wall that had a visual in it. The kaleidoscopic image was in there that I remember, and that's what I put the camera in to photograph instead of the window. But I ended up with this. So this was a while ago, so I sort of don't remember exactly what I was doing, only I have the pictures. It's really strange because it's so abstract, you know, it changes. All right, where else can you find a NASA astronaut but in Bloomingdale's? Bloomingdale's is noted for its avant-garde and creativity for their windows, but this year, I love this one. It's the same year as the astronauts. I love the treatment of the Christmas tree as far as an abstract, and the fashions are really cool. This one's a little bizarre. I think they were going after the New Year's celebration, but I love the image. It feels like it's underwater. Now, what's this? Okay, everybody knows. No, it's Oculus. Yeah, it's the ant's eye view of Oculus, looking up. And you see the reindeer running around the outside? This is Bloomberg's Corporate Christmas on Lexington. And Louis Vuitton, this window is actually the first window of Bloomingdale's. It's always Louis Vuitton. This was a few years ago. It was a rectangular display, but I just love the way it came out with the fisheye. Now this is the last picture in the series. This is a poster that I designed from that particular year. I need to design quite a few more posters since I have so many more images now, and I probably will be doing so in the future. Now we're moving into channeling Magritte. This is titled Brooklyn Bridge. It was the background image of Brooklyn Bridge was photographed during the Photoville when I was sitting, after I was sitting in SVA container for 3 hours. I thought it was cooked. So I went over and hung out underneath the Brooklyn Bridge. It was the only cool spot in the area because of the breeze, literally. And while I was standing there, these jet skiers came downstream towards the Statue of Liberty, and they turned around and came back up, and I got the shot. Fortunately, I had my camera with me. The Channeling of Magritte series evolved from my illustrative portraiture series. I used both Adobe Lightroom and Photoshop to create my photo illustrative design for retouching. The digital background image was photographed first, then completed with Adobe Photoshop prior to photographing my self-portrait in the studio. This particular image, Brooklyn Bridge, was exhibited in Vistas, juried by Dan Burkholder in 2017 at the A. Smith Gallery in Texas. Now, this is my lighting setup, or the way I shoot the Magritte characters. In the center, right here, this is an Elastrolight 6 by 7 foot light modifier. On each side of the Elastrolight, there's two 750 Calumets. That's this over here. Strobe. That's pumping a lot of light into there. I used a low modeling light setting because I don't need it black. I don't want to heat it up too much. I want it to stay cool inside of there. I build a triangle. The camera's the apex. The two side panels are two large 6 by 8 foot, roughly 6 by 8 foot, black reflectors. I used the cell phone. This happened to be the iPhone 6S. It was a while ago, this particular shot. I'm able to select my point of focus by touching the phone. The phone's image shows me my body attitude, the position of the phone, the way I'm holding it. In my head, I'm pre-visualizing the image I want to put it into. So I'm trying to tell myself how to stand. I get it approximately the right way I want to do it, and I push the little button down here. Where's that button? Down here, and it fires the camera. The phone fires the camera. So I end up with a low-res image in the phone and a much larger image in the camera. And this is one of the examples called 7th Avenue. I was coming from an event space working on portfolio development. Where's Debbie? With Deborah. And I was crossing 7th Avenue, and I looked up 7th Avenue so I wouldn't get hit by a car, and I realized what I was looking at, so I ran back across the street, got my camera and went back in the next light and shot the background. Then I went to the studio, back to the studio, and ended up shooting this characterization. There's a separate mask for the character and a separate mask for the iPhone. So there's two masks that you have to make. And then I take the overall image and I reduce it down and put it in the phone. This is titled Brooklyn Promenade. I was on my way over to an opening at the Klumching Gallery and got sidetracked by the sunset. So I started shooting panoramics. Again, I used a different body attitude. The camera's vertical because I'm actually pointing the camera at the Statue of Liberty. This is part of a portfolio I was developing called Soho Graffiti. This image is called Soho Graffiti Stalker. And basically, I wasn't stalking this person, but I was stalking the graffiti behind the person, waited for the person to leave the frame, but they looked at the camera, so I shot the picture. and then I made this.
Gifts.
Okay, this is reflections from, this is glass reflections. It was photographed on the High Line with a longer focal length of 70 to 200. The vessel. Reflections of past and present. I used to study architecture as a young person, and I was really good at drafting and stuff. And the thing that blew my mind about the High Line is that it's turning into all glass, and it's sort of like, for me, And I sort of liked some of the older architecture, and I was really happy when I found this one spot that was reflecting the past as well as the present. This is Louis Vuitton on 57th and 5th. And I was down on Orchard Street on my way over to the Foley Gallery, and there was this men's shop on the corner that's always open. Every time I've been there, it was open. This one day it was closed and the gates were down. I never saw the gates before. So I went nuts. I shut the gate. Okay, this was Ukraine 2022. This image is a 3-image composite. It was completely inspired by Frank Mayo's projections when month after month, or day after day, at one point, he was presenting, documentary photographers were presenting documentaries from Ukraine and the war that was going on. I have relatives in Europe on my mother's side, and it reminds, some of the grandmothers got to me. So I thought, I gotta make an image. So I grew the sunflower, had it sitting on a sheet of glass. The pocket watch I got from my wife, it was an old Sears pocket watch. I put it on a piece of glass. It's a studio still life shot on 4x5, shooting Ektachrome. I ended up scanning the chrome, and then using the Wacom tablet and the pen tool, I ended up masking out the background around the sunflower. And I brought in a sky from the salt marsh, right? And then I dropped in Magritte character, which I put in a leather jacket because I wanted it to be more present day. This is Mercury transit. One day Mercury was traveling in front of the sun. So I have a filter. I like shooting eclipses and solar eclipses, lunar eclipses. This was it was a clear blue sky. With the filter, you end up with a black sky, and you end up with a circle that completely looks like it's opaque. It's just like one color. There's no definition to shape. It's just a circle on black. So I ended up going through my library and I picked out a dawn that was one of my favorites, and I thought the color would work. I made a mask for that, got those two working in Photoshop, and then created a shape for the sun to make it more round rather than flat, because it had no definition. And then I brought in Magritte, the Magritte character. This is the meadow in the marsh. We're getting into the marsh material now. This is the meadow of the living marsh with a fog rolling around 8 feet in the air, going across the meadow. It's just incredible early in the morning some days. This is the salt marsh. This was a midterm project for my Photoshop class that was taught by Katrine Eisman. I decided I thought I would like to do panoramics, because I had never shot panoramics before, and I didn't realize at the time how much I would really use them, and I shoot them all the time now without thinking. I ended up setting up 7 to 8 days straight in a row at the salt marsh, unless it was raining, before the sun came up, before dawn came up. It was blackout, right? There was a little light behind the nature center that I could see to set up my equipment, and I stood there and I watched the light come up and how it painted the landscape. So it took me a while to learn what the light actually, how it interplays with the clouds and the water, and when it's the right time to shoot. But I ended up doing 4 frames and stitched it together in Photoshop. Later I added the Magritte character for one of my websites. This is a 2-frame composite. This is the last Magritte character. This I ended up designing for my card. It's titled Crescent Moon. It received 2 awards from the ASMP. One was for a ASMP Style Photo Awards. It received a 2nd place award for promotion. And the second award it received was Seeing the Light in Two Light category, first place winner, Rangefinder Magazine. And it was in the 12th International Color Award. It received an honorable mention. The Living Marsh. This is Starlings Over the Meadow. It's a 4-frame panoramic. It happens so fast. I shoot with a 150 to 600. I have a special attachment, a Leica attachment that I use with the camera. I was able to just follow the birds like you're shooting ducks, but I'm shooting a rifle. I'm shooting a camera. It's funny, but when I was a kid, I was taught to go hunting where I grew up, and it was like I didn't question it. But that's the way I shoot. And I stalk birds, I stalk the rabbits, I stalk the pheasants, but I know how to stalk in order to get photographs, to make photographs. So this is the system that I use if I'm set up on the Osprey platform and I'm trying to get really tight shots of birds coming in with a fish to feed, the male coming in with a fish to feed the young birds. It's a Oban carbon fiber gimbal head on a Bogen Manphoto tripod. The tripod's lightweight, but it's strong enough to carry a 4x5 and or a large 2 1/4, 3 1/4, or anything smaller camera. Now, this is what I go for. I might stand there for an hour and a half to get one shot. I don't know how fast that bird's coming in or from what angle. It's that fast. So that mechanism allows me the rigidity and the fluidity to track the birds, and I stand a chance of getting a shot I'm after. He's bringing in a flounder with no head on it because he's taking the time to eat the head off first. That's general practice. That's a general practice for the osprey. Now, there's a certain time when they don't do that. They stop eating the head off the fish. They bring the whole fish in to teach the young to eat the head off the fish. Because at one point, the young still have to learn how to fly, and they also have to learn how to fish themselves. Now, this image was used by the Marine Parks Department for a spring-summer calendar in 2024. This is one of my favorite panoramics that I shot, I think it was 2 years ago. It's shot in April, and it's I only had to combat the mosquitoes and the gnats. The gnats were worse than the mosquitoes, but I think it's a 5-frame composite. It's the profile of the park itself, shot from the west side of Garretson Creek. I'm looking towards the sunrise, but it hasn't come up yet. I'm looking at the dawn. And in April, I get this. I get this character. It only happened 2 years in a row so far. I get the growth. These are two different trees, but they make a face. Then I didn't expect the clouds to do what they were doing. So honest, I wasn't smoking anything. I was just going nuts over what I was seeing. It was actually there. All right, this was shot from the sidewalk in Avenue U. It's sunrise over Garretson Creek. This is a mute swan swimming across Garretson Creek during dawn. And the image on the right is a black-crowned night heron, lightly overcast morning. The water surface turns into a mirror. It's just really beautiful, as these are. The image on the left is a cormorant finding the sweet spot during sunset. And the image on the right is a black skimmer. It's not black because that's a silhouetted skimmer, but it's a black skimmer in dawn's reflection. And basically, you're looking at the reflection of dawn in the water. The water literally turns into a mirror certain times during the day. And you have to be there to actually see it and understand that you're going to see it. Okay, this is a fisherman's recreation, a true recreation for a fisherman, just paddling through the water. All you could hear was the water, the paddle slicing through the water. It was so beautiful. Now, this is a great white egret. He was hopping from and flying and hopping from piling to piling. They go across, they stretch across Garretson Creek. They're from the 1650s, right? They're still there. The water level is right over there. That's the water level right there. You can't even see it because the water's moving. I followed the bird. I'm shooting with a 600 millimeter. I used a flash fill. It was a Godox V862S with a MagMod mag beam modifier. I can't say that real fast. It works great. It's only supposed to cover like up to a 200, but I'm using it on 600 and it works perfectly, right? I love spider webs. They're often visible in the spring, early in the morning, just after sunrise, when there's a lot of fog and dew in the meadow. These are Canadian geese in the shallows of during dawn. This is a dogfish shark in the shallows of the lower marsh. He's beaching himself. And I've seen it once before, and the first time I saw it, it surprised the heck out of me. I didn't know I was looking at a shark. I thought I was, but I wasn't sure. All right. This is a mute swan with angel wing, and if you ask me what it is during the question and answers, I'll be happy to answer it. It's quite a story. It certainly surprised me when I experienced this. Great blue heron, great blue heron. Right after dawn, sun just cleared the horizon, and it was a little chilly out that morning. Now, this is one of those mornings again. There was rolling fog in the background, and the sky was reflected in the water. There's a mute swan asleep, floating in the water, and all of a sudden, this great white egret comes walking behind it, looking for fish. I mean, I could have shot a film. It would have been great for a film. But you got to be there at the right time. All right, this is a cottontail rabbit in the meadow of the salt marsh. That was a big rabbit. And I did follow the rabbit. I try to be really quiet. The trail's got gravel on it. It's like walking around in a bowl of Rice Krispies. You make so much noise that I end up walking on I try to walk on the end of the trail so like a mouse. I don't make any sound. But I caught up to him. I got the shot. These are datura blooms. They bloom only at night. They're really beautiful and they're poisonous. They close at dawn. They close up when the sun hits them in the morning. This is a young osprey returning to the nest, hopefully to be fed by the parents because he doesn't know how to fish yet. He was watching all the other birds capture fish and didn't do a thing, just sat on the back of the nature center and then flew back across Garretson Creek. I love it when I see these guys. This is an adult male ringneck pheasant, but with a chick. Now, I mean, this is the first time I saw a male with a chick. I was so quiet. I thought I was floating. It was just really, you have to be super quiet and just be there to experience it. This is a downy young clapper rail. I got to get a drink of water. Because I'm standing on the end of the dock, the observation platform, and all I could hear was clop, 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 clop. Disgusting, right? It's a weird sound that sounds so abstract. You wouldn't think the grown adult version of this little chick makes it. But this little chick hopped out in front of me, 5 feet in front of me on the observation platform, and I froze. I didn't move. I was able to get off 2 shots, and it walked across. It didn't even know I was standing there, which thank goodness it didn't, because I wouldn't have gotten a shot. This is the adult. This is the environment they live in. They live in the salt marsh and the marsh grass. They nest there. And so when you get near the observation platform in certain times of the year, all you hear is whack, 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 whack. Well, I can't even do the sound, but it's really strange. It doesn't sound like what it looks like. This is a red-tailed hawk scanning the meadow for breakfast. I saw him as a silhouette. I was down the trail, and again, I tiptoed along as fast as I could to get close to him. This was shot with a 600 millimeter lens. I got 2 shots off. He must have heard the camera. The second shot, he's looking right down the lens, and then he took off. So I was lucky. I was really lucky to get this shot. These are 2. To tell me what kind of. Yeah, it's a pair of kingfishers, and I love photographing these birds, but they're so darn hard to photograph. I mean, they're so tiny, they're so fast, and these 2 guys are in the middle of an arc to come back across the salt marsh towards the bridge that I'm standing on. I was able to grab it because I was shooting. I was at this point I was using a Sony A6700, which is a crop sensor. It's a 26 megapixel. It makes that 600 millimeter, 900 millimeter, and it's that fast at focusing. It's that fast at picking up the eye, and it can pick it up when you can't see it, which blows my mind how well that camera works. It's super. Now, this is a large school of bunkerfish, really large bunkerfish, gigantic school. And this is one of the bunkerfish that this great blue heron had caught. He was in the water. His wings came up. He dove down into the water, came up with this fish on all the way up on his bill, started flapping, flew horizontally across the water and landed on the rocks. Then he tried to eat it, and of course it was too big to get down. He couldn't eat it. It was just too big. At that point, I left. I mean, I wasn't going to sit there for 20 minutes and watch him try to eat this thing. This one, though, this great white egret was just the perfect fisherman. He's standing on a submerged piling. All the bubbles you see in the lower part of the frame, those are all bunkerfish, small bunkerfish. And he's sitting there just picking one off after the next, filling up the tank. It was just incredible. And this image was used by the Marine Parks Department for the spring-summer calendar in 2023. Okay, I love raccoons. I mean, I don't get to see them enough. This past year, though, I was able to capture this image. I had photographed them from the bridge earlier, where I'm looking at them down the beach. But I wanted to see if I could get them coming out of the lower meadow down to the water's edge. And I stood there a couple days in a row. The second day I finally got it. They came out of the lower marsh right down, the whole family, foraging for food right after sunrise. This is our local muskrat who lives right behind the nature center in the rocks. There's a sign that says, don't sit on the rocks. Or stay off the rocks, and this is the reason. I wouldn't want to get nipped by him. It's the first time I've ever seen him out of the water, and I was really lucky because I was focused on shooting birds below the nature center down at the bottom of the cliff of the rocks, and I saw him out of the corner of my eye, and I just pivoted and shot. I didn't think. I just reacted, and I got the shot. Bird on the left is a downy woodpecker early in the morning, and the bird on the right is the black skimmer. Now, the lower jaw of the skimmer is like an inch longer than the upper jaw, and it uses it like a shovel. It just flies across the surface of the water like that, skimming up fish. And that's how they fish. And they're so agile. They're like giant. They have really wide wings, and they're like jet planes flying on. It's very difficult to shoot sometimes, especially if they're coming at you. They're super fast. This is a great white egret coming up Garretson Creek. I'm standing on the observation platform between dawn and sunset. This was more during the time of dawn, and I was lucky to get the shot. I just waited and waited and waited and then shot. But again, I'm using the right lens. I'm in the right place at the right time. This is a fisherman's dawn in Garrison Creek before the sun comes up. This image is Meadows Dawn. It's an 8 vertical frames made into a panoramic. It was shot in March of the year. The Marine Parks Department ended up using it for their fall calendar in 2022. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. It was so beautiful. Last image, Strawberry Moon over Garrison Creek. I used the TPE app to help the photographer's Empress app to help me find where the sun's going to come up or where the sun's going to set. In this case, where the moon's going to come up. And I was still off because you got to remember, sometimes when I'm looking through a 600 millimeter, I forget the Earth's not flat. Except when you're looking at a scene like this, you can't see the moon. Even though it's up, you can't see the moon because it's behind clouds that are way out in the ocean, right? And it's this small, fadey glow, and you have to wait and wait until it shows itself. That's what happened here. So this is my last page. This is the Saltmarsh Nature Center. I don't know if I want to read all this, but I'm going to read you the third and the fourth paragraph only. This is from a 16-page research paper that I wrote. By 1935, the marsh had become a dump. Major landfilling from 1945 to 1962 buried the marshes around Garrison Creek under 8 feet of garbage and construction debris, unlawful dumping of chemicals, cars, refrigerator stoves, tires, pollutants from leaky septic systems, and runoffs from oil-stained roadways contributed to the environmental degradation of the water pollution of the living marsh. And in fact, New York State's politicians at that time made a really poor judgment call and destroyed it. I mean, they killed everything in there. Only black skates were in the water, ravens were flying around, and there were rats in the meadow. That was it. Now, today, the Saltmarsh Nature Center has reclaimed nature's ecosystem through the ecological restoration of its salt marsh by the City of New York's Parks and Recreation, New York Department of Environmental Conservation, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. The restoration process is a long-term project, and I hope it's still in progress today. Basically, the only way I can tell, because I'm not directly involved with the Parks Department, this is my own project, is that they cut back half the meadow again this year. In the meadow, by September, the mugworts is not a character out of I forgot the name of it. Thank you, Harry Potter. It's a plant that grows 8 to 10 feet tall and smothers anything that's growing around it. And then there's also the Phragmites that are really beautiful, but they destroy anything that nothing can grow beneath them. And they grow 12 to 14 feet tall, and they consume the meadow. Now in the meadow, you have all this meadow grass that migrating birds eat, and they need to nest in. So it's refreshing to see that they take care of that, but I don't know if it's part of that ongoing process. My only other question I have in my mind is, if this happened in Marine Park, I wonder how many other places in the United States this has actually happened, and how many other cities that parks have been totally destroyed because somebody's made the wrong decision where to dump their solid waste material. If you read my paper, it explains the whole thing. That's it. Any questions?
Hi, Bill. Thanks for the presentation. My name's Scott. I'm the Executive Director of the Marine Park Alliance, so we've used your photos in many of our calendars.
Hi, Scott.
I just want to say they're fabulous, and we look forward to using them again in the future if you're willing. And I'm also glad that you noted the mowing of the coastal meadow, which happened recently. We worked with the Parks Department to advocate for that. We left a little bit of it left as habitat, but wanted to keep it cut so that nothing woody grows up.
Well, I got a question for you.
Okay. I thought I was asking the question.
The other half of the meadow that wasn't cut. I mean, this has happened before. The first time I was startled, but I'm wondering, do the rabbits and the migrating birds shift over to the other part of the meadow?
That's exactly the thinking, is to have a rotation. So the idea is we want to phase in every year, mowing a third of it essentially,
Okay.
to keep it cut, but leaving some of it grown.
Are you planning meadow grass also? I mean, to try to plow some of those roots under?
Well, we have a planting project coming up in the spring that I'd love to talk to you about, because there were also a lot of wildfires in the meadow this past fall during the drought. So it's part of
Yeah.
the response to that.
Too many.
I don't really have a question. I just wanted to say great work, and I'm glad to see you as an advocate of the march. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Hey, Bill. I
Charlie.
have two questions and then a statement. Number one, and possibly for the gentleman back there. When did the restoration project start? How long has it been going?
There was an Army Corps project, I think, in 2012.
Yeah, Army Corps of Engineers. There's a plaque on top of the knoll. There's a series of boulders, and there's a plaque up there dedicated to them.
Could you repeat the year because that was not been on the mic?
What was the year?
Was it 2012?
I think.
The year was 2012.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's a lot of work. Number two, when do you sleep?
Well, I get up. I have a cat that my daughter gave me by the name of Storm. She gets me up every morning before sunrise. Seriously. It's like an alarm clock that's automatic whether I want it or not. But I get up before dawn, and I usually, if I'm going to shoot, I go out and I drive to the park. Now, I don't carry this lens because it's too heavy. And I drive to the park. I usually set up as dawn is happening, usually about, at least I try to get there about 35 minutes before sunrise. Because the color is just absolutely insane. It's amazing what happens. It's like being in Arizona photographing the sunset, and then after the sunset, all the magic happens. That's what happens in the morning, in the salt marsh. In the afternoon, no. Not the same thing.
And just a quick statement. Unbelievable. You know, I've been a fan for a long time, and kudos. The various bodies of work and the different skill sets are amazing. And your dedication is something to be admired. So thank you for sharing all of that.
Oh, thank you.
All right, hands up. Questions, comments, welcome.
Oh, good. Somebody's got to have more questions. Come on.
Bill, I just want to compliment you and say congratulations. It's absolutely, I followed you for many, many years, and I love your work and your dedication to photography and to nature and to your images are unbelievable. I remember when you were working on the salt march, everything is just incredible. But I just want to ask you, because a lot of people, like I come from the Adirondack Mountains in the wilds, so I know, what it's like going out there in the morning. And you mentioned the gnats and, black flies and the mosquitoes. The elements to get your shot is amazing, because those shots are not easy to get.
No.
Not just for photography perspective, but also from the nature loving perspective of, the elements that you have to conquer. But anyway, I just want to thank you, because it's incredible, incredible work, Bill.
Very welcome.
Hey, Bill, thanks a lot. You hinted at a story regarding the swan when you showed us the swan. Yeah. So could
The
that
angel wing.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm standing on the bridge in Marine Park, and all the way across the inlet, there's this swan, and he starts making a beeline to me. He swam directly to me. I'm the only person there. Nobody else is there. It's late in the afternoon, and he swims right up to me. And when he did, I thought my mouth just dropped, because I didn't know what I was looking at. I'm looking at a really beautiful bird that obviously wanted me to feed him. I don't feed birds unless I would feed them bird seed, but quite frankly, I didn't know what I was looking at, and it startled me. So I photographed the bird. I went back to the house. I got on the internet, and I started researching what I had just seen. It turns out that what he has is angel wing, this right here. It's caused by an abundance of sugar that the swan has in his system, and it causes a what's the word?
Malformation?
Thank you. In his wing. A it distorts his wing, and basically, it looks like you're looking at brooms, an old broom that was beat up, or his bones. Basically, this poor swan can't fly, it can't mate, it can't protect itself. The only thing it can do is paddle through the water and eat seaweed and grass that's in the water. And what's caused it is people feeding geese and waterfowl. Any bird that has webbed feet it's a waterfowl. Mallards, geese, Canadian geese, or swans. You feed them, they'll eat the bread, but over a period of time, it affects their system, and they develop angel wing. It'll ruin their lives. So when I see somebody standing on a bridge like an old grandpa with a baby, which I did, and the guy's throwing bread in the water, I go over, first I photograph him, then I go over, I don't miss the opportunity. I go over and I tell him, you know what you're doing? And I show him the picture because it's on my phone. And I explain it, and then he says, well, I didn't know. There's a sign in the park that they need more signage, by the way. They desperately need signage that says, do not feed the animals. You don't need to. There's so much food in this nature center for the animals.
Thank you. Tom?
Bill,
Did I answer that?
so
Go
Bill, I want to mirror what a lot of people have said just about your passion for your subjects, your dedication to your craft is just phenomenal, and the images are wonderful. Another aspect of you is that a lot of us have gotten to know is also a member of the photographic community, and that you attend so many events and so many lectures and talks. Can you talk about that, just a little bit about that, and how that is part of your practice as an artist, as a photographer?
Well, when I was a student, I started going to a lot of other lectures, like lighting demonstrations or presentations at the event space when they had it, and also at Adorama. I spent a lot of time at Adorama also when I was in school here because it's so close. And I would go listen to like McMalley give a lighting demonstration at Adorama. He loves Adorama. He buys all his equipment there. And I learn a lot. It's just running that information. If I don't have time to set up in the studio and do things for myself, I'll go to a lecture and just let it run that information back through my mind. It's like recycling. And it enables me to refocus myself. I used to do a lot of advertising and commercial work in analog. That's a whole nother story. But since I graduated, the industry itself has changed so much. And I found that I was better off as a person supporting my people that are other photographers who I respect in the industry by going and listening to them talk, and I document it. I mean, I wasn't asked to document it, but I thought it was important to document it to share what they were saying and to give back. And that way, I don't know if it's helping me, or I was hoping it would help other people. Communication is really important.
Thank you.
Hi, Bill. I've known you for a long time,
Hi,
and
Paul.
I'm amazed for the photographs I'm seeing, really. I haven't seen all of them actually, so I'm really amazed. My question is really about the park, the marsh itself. Have you gone to other marshes, or have you looked at other places?
No, when I was a kid, I had a job on a newspaper when I was 19. It was my first job at a high school on a newspaper, and I worked for a paper out of Minneapolis. One day I had to shoot a women's club meeting. I thought I was going to die. I came out of the women's club meeting, no offense, ladies, but I was 19. I came out of the women's club meeting, and I heard this little babbling brook, and I'm going, what is that? So I went walking in the woods, and there I found a construction company had dumped tires and construction material in this creek. So I photographed it, and I got a picture of a little frog sitting in a tire. I gave it to my stepfather, who was a park and planning commissioner and a judge, who sat bench down in Annapolis. He took the picture down into the State House and gave it to the people, to the politicians down there, and he said that that picture helped pass a law.
Great.
So I think that's where it comes from.
Right. Excellent. Thank you.
Hi, wonderful photography. But my question to you is, how do you feel about what I call a natural photograph of something, just taking the shot, and then having it done Photoshop to what you want it to be? Or do you like the natural shot first? Because we saw a lot of that at the
All
beginning.
right, I started out in analog. One of my best photographs, one of my most favorite photographs, is a straight shot of Coretta Scott King leading a candlestick march in Washington, D.C. I couldn't shoot better than that. I was like 18 or 19. And it's all natural light. Tri-X, rated at 12, no, it wasn't Tri-X, it was Ilford Pan F, rated at 320, processed in AccuFine. And that picture is just timeless. So there are pictures that you need to leave, documentary photographs. First of all, they're shot in camera, whether they're digital or analog, and they're treated to be treated as analog. Like the series I did on Captain Sharps in the Waterfront Museum, that's all available light, and it's straight. There's only one shot in there that I used light to illuminate, and that was in the bedroom. Otherwise, it's all natural light. And at any time I would use Photoshop is for dust busting, okay, and or lifting the shadows, adjusting the contrast and that stuff. But that's it. No image total manipulation. In other words, not like I do with the studio portraits. You're talking to somebody that's, I studied at Art Center College of Design, and I studied design, I studied advertising, I studied painting, and quite frankly, I think like a photographic illustrator in my regular mind's eye. If I see it in my head, I can make it happen, but there's a right place and time for everything.
Hey, Bill.
Hi, Paul.
I think. How are you doing? All right. I think one of the things that I really wanted to, I'll ask you a question in a second, but aside from your talented photography, I could listen to you talk all day. You have a way of interweaving wit into. I don't even know if you know how funny you are. You're very entertaining. You have varied styles, and your passion comes through, particularly for nature photography. But I'm curious as to, you've obviously been shooting your whole life. Where did your inspiration come from initially, and as you got older, did inspirations change You know, did you look up to anybody specifically that helped sort of pave the way for you?
I knew I wanted to get, I was originally inspired to make photographs. When I was in high school, I had a paper route. I didn't have any other way to make money. I had a Washington Post paper route in my neighborhood, and I pulled a Washington Post. I wish I had that wagon. It was a gorgeous wagon. Around the neighborhood, like 6 blocks every morning. Maybe that's why I get up early, 5 o'clock in the morning. And and I would read the paper. I would check out the photography is what spoke to me, the journalism, the photojournalism. And that paper route made me enough money so I could buy my first camera, which was a Nikon FTN. So that's where I knew I wanted to get into photography, was at that time. And who inspired me? A bunch of different people. Before I went to Art Center, I discovered Jerry Uelsmann in a magazine store in Wheaton Plaza, Maryland. I worked in a camera store, sweeping the floor and stocking the shelves. And that's when I discovered his work, and it blew my mind because it was like storytelling in one image. But I didn't understand how, because I didn't know enough about anything at the time. So I decided I wanted to go to school, and I ended up going to University of Maryland. I worked on the Diamondback staff. I moonlighted on the Diamondback staff. I got to cover the Harlem Globetrotters with a rangefinder. I got to cover demonstrations, protest demonstration, James Brown, a bunch of different stuff. And that got me hooked. That was the summer of Woodstock. I got to photograph, what group was that? Led Zeppelin. They were at a concert in Laurel, Maryland. I was the only photographer there for 2 days. 1 day rock and roll, 1 day of big band sounds with Count Basie, Roberta Flack. And I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, I did with the camera, but I had no idea what I had just experienced.
Wow. I want to see the Led Zeppelin.
I'm so sorry. I know I'm hogging this, but I want to ask, who would you consider your favorite photographers?
There's too many of them.
Yeah. I mean,
early on, Ernest Haas, his book, The Creation, really took me. Yeah, Ernest Haas. And outside of Jerry Uelsmann, then later, Eugene Smith, Cartier-Bresson, that decisive moment type thing, where I realized later that it was actually a sequence of images. But it's trying to get that moment that really is important. When I was at Art Center, I started studying advertising photographers in New York. And I ended up working for one who was shooting out on the coast a lot. As an assistant, I would work for him in San Francisco and San Diego and in LA. And he was a true photographic illustrator. His name was Peter Vaith. He went to RIT, he was a graduate from RIT, but he shot mainstream advertising for advertising agency, liquor ads, rug, carpet ads, all kinds of advertising. And the one thing that really got me was he shot everything on 35 millimeter, which was right up my alley, even though I had to shoot with 4x5 and 8x10 and all that stuff. By running the film back through the camera, he would do multiple images. He was able to paint a scene on a piece of film by running it through the camera, and it was amazing. I learned how to load the film and start to do that from him before I just said I had enough. I had to leave because his studio was in Carnegie Hall. It was just an incredible time, but it was totally demanding of my life, too much so.
Wow. Yes. Steve? Anybody?
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was really great to see the work. I guess I was curious about the Magritte series, and it seems to me that there is an overlap with the work that you're showing here with the nature work and the sunrise and the color there. But can you talk more about that? And it seems like the figure is us observing the scene, but tell me more.
Yeah, the whole concept came out of why can't I put myself in my images? Because they're my images. I mean, have you ever felt that way when you were shooting? You made a photograph that. Why are you shaking your head, Paul? That's what got me. I didn't understand why I couldn't put myself in my images, so I decided to answer the question, how do you put yourself into your image? So I found the character of one person referred to it as a mysterious character. And I said, no, it's not. I thought about the mysterious character, which I thought was interesting. So I started thinking like that, and I started photographing. I would go to like a protest for the Board of Education, you know? And at that protest, I might see something that rang a bell in the back of my mind's eye that said, photograph this, and then I would use it later with the Magritte character that I started to develop. It took me a while to develop that. And of course, I may overlap back there, but that's me making a picture. I'm trying to understand how I want the viewer to experience it as much as I did, but I thought I would, that's where it led me to. I don't know if I answered your question, but I tried to.
Do you have a follow-up, Steve? Are you good?
Sounds good.
Anyone else? All right, let's give it up for Mr. King.
Thank you.